Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophets Speak. Today we continue our study of the first book of Chronicles, that is Divrei Hayamim Aleph. We are about to read and study the final chapter of this half of the book of Chronicles, which is really all one book. But Chronicles 1, this is chapter 29, Perek Chaf Tes, and this will conclude the reign of King David, which was the primary topic of this entire section, the first book of Chronicles. Notably, as we pointed out many times throughout our study of this book, we pointed out that the chronicler, the writer of the book, is focusing on the positive aspects of David's career. The several rebellions that took place, and most notably the rebellion of Avshalom, the terrible story of Amnon and Tamar, the rape of Tamar by one of David's sons, the story of the David and Bathsheba, all of the not so pleasant episodes that we studied in significant detail in the book of Shmuel, the book of Samuel, are not shared here. And in the speech that is recorded, David's final parting speech, is also left out important things. The references to, for example, if you look in the second chapter of the first book of Kings, where it records David's final speech to Solomon there's the mention of the feud with Yoav, and how Yoav, David wanted Yoav to be punished for his treachery when he did not allow the peace to happen between the supporters, the remnants of supporters of Saul's family and David's family, and so on. All those stories that were painful, difficult stories of strife are not mentioned here, and it's to just keep that in mind as we hear this version of David's parting speech in chapter 29. So that's what we're about to study now. Vayomer David, this is verse 1. Vayomer David HaMelech l'chol ha'kahal. And King David said to all of the assembled congregation, Shlomo beni, Shlomo, my son, Echad, he is one, he is the one, B'charbo Elohim na'ar varach, that God has chosen him, and he is a young and untried, literally Rach means soft, lad. Tradition has it that he was about 12 years old at this time. And there's a great job ahead of him to do. Kilo Adam Habira, specifically, he's referring to the building of the temple. This temple that we're building is not just for human beings, but it is for the Lord God. Now, interestingly, one gets the sense that the building is not just the building, the actual building of the temple, but it's the entire nation of God. It's not just for the people, which is important enough on its own to build the nation, but it is for the honor of God, which makes it so much more important and so much more complicated to get it right. Ubekechol kochi, and I, with all of my strength. It's interesting how it uses the word kichol with a chaf here and not bichol. Bichol would be a better way to say it, because it would seem to have been a better way, because with all my strength. And like kichol sounds like, and like I used all my strength. But the hint here that I think is going, and that David is saying when he says it's as if I used all my strength, it's because David is saying I could have actually built the temple. I could have disregarded what God told me. If I had used all my strength, I would have done it. But I didn't, because God instructed me not to, right? So it is as if I used all my strength, because I had more in me, but I couldn't go the next step. So it's as if I used all my strength, and hachinosi, I prepared for lebeis Elohai, for the house of my God, hazahav lazahav, the gold for the gold, the kesef la kesef, lanachoshes lanachoshes, all the gold that's needed for the gold needs, all the silver for the silver needs, all of the bronze for the bronze needs, la barzel, the iron for the iron needs, v'etzim la'etzim, wood for the wood needs, avnei shoham u'miluim, avnei fuch v'rikma, these are precious stones of all types, and all types of rikma, which is woven objects, v'chol even yikara, and all sorts of precious stones, v'avnei shayish, and marble larov, to so much of it. V'yod bertzosi beveis Elohai, and furthermore, because I wanted so much to build the house of God, yet of my God, yeshli segula zav chesef, I I I I have my own collection, my own set aside. The segula is what a person takes and puts aside for himself. It's like an heirloom that you put aside. So I have that of my own things of zav chesef, gold and silver, nasati leveis Elohai lamala, that I also donated to the house of God. It's in order to uplift it. In addition to everything that I prepared specifically for the temple. So, in other words, there's plenty of things that we obtained and placed aside special for the temple, but also the things that are in my house, in the house of the king, I also donated. And this included Shloshes Alafim Kikrei Zahav, Mizahav Ophir, 3,000 golden talents of Ophir gold, which is a special high quality gold, Vishiva Salafim Pikar Kesef Mizukok, and 7,000 talents of purified silver, Latuach Kiros Habatim, which was for the purpose of plating the walls, covering the walls with silver. Lazahav, gold for gold needs, kesef for kesef, and silver for silver needs. And everything that was needed for the carpenters to do their work. Umi misnadev lemalot yado hayom laAdonai. And who is going to be generous enough that he's going to give whatever his hand, whatever he's able to give, what he's able to afford to God today. So then, in other words, David is telling people to, you guys donate too. So then the people that were assembled responded by Yisnad Vusari, Abos Vusari, Shiftei Yisrael Vusari, Alaf Ma'ameos, Vusari Melech Samelech, and all of these officers and so on, they all donated from their own things, from their own money, their own gold, silver, the wood, etc. And they gave to the work of the building and the service of the house of God, Zav Kikarim Chameshes Alafim, 5,000 talents of gold, V'adar Chonim Ribo, Chesef Kikarim Eser Salafim, and Adarchonim are a kind of coin that's 10,000. A ribo is 10,000 of this coin. V'kesef Kikarim Eser Salafim, and 10,000 silver talents, and Uchoshes Ribo, and 10,000 bronze, Ushmona Salafim Kikarim, and 8,000 uvarzel. I'm sorry, Ribo Ushmonas, that's 10,800 of bronze, and Barzel iron, Mea Elef Kikarim, 100,000 talents. And whoever had precious stones, Nasnu Otzar Beis Adonai Yadi Chiel Gershuni, they gave it to the storehouse of God's house, which was being watched and taken care of by Yechiel, the Gershonite. Okay, from that family of the Levites. And the people were so happy about regarding their donations. In other words, they weren't forced to give this as a tax. They loved to do it. They wanted to do it. They gave it out of their own the free will and their own desire. With the complete heart, they were generous to God. And King David was extremely happy. And in response to this, David said, many of you might be familiar with the next few verses from the daily morning prayers, where we this is part of the liturgy. Vayevarach David es Adonai, and David blessed God le'enei kol hakahol, in front of the eyes of all of the people that were assembled. Vayomer David, and David said as follows: Baruch atah Adonai Elohei Yisrael Avinu. Blessed are you, God, the Lord of Israel, our forefather, may olam bi'ad olam, forever and ever. L'cha Adonai hagadula, to you, God, is all greatness. In other words, greatness is only due unto you, v'hagavura, and power, v'atiferes, and splendor, v'hanetzach, and Netzach could mean victory. Netzach could mean foreverness, that you're the only one that has that v'yahod and the majesty. Kichol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, because everything that is in the heavens and the earth, l'cha Adonai hamamlecha, to you, God, is the kingdom over everything. V'hamisnasei l'chol rosh, you are uplifted above everything, above and and completely beyond everything that exists in this world. Via osher, via kavod milfanecha, and wealth and honor is before you. Via tomosha bakol, you rule over everything. V'yadcha kochel gvura, and in your hands is all the strength and the power and the might. V'yadcha legadel ulechazek akol, and it is in your hands to make anyone great and to give strength to anyone. In other words, you, God, can give that, and you have the power and the might to give that to those who are assembled here, who are generously giving to you and to your honor. And now, God, we are giving thanks to you, and we are giving praise to your wondrous name. And David immediately turns to his trademark humility. Who am I? Umi ami, and who is my nation? Ki natzor koach, that we should have the the uh, the ability, right? That we should have the collective ability, hisnadev kazos, to be so generous like we have been. Everything is from you, and it is what you gave us that we gave to you. In other words, we shouldn't think that we are somehow giving glory to God. Everything we're giving to you, we got from you in the first place. It's a very important, humble message for us. The things that we have when we give a donation, when we give of ourselves to help others, or when we give of ourselves to do the right thing, we have to remember that it's not us giving. Whatever we have, the ability to give itself is a gift from God. It all comes from Him. Ki gerim anachnu lefanacha. We are gerim. We are just wanderers. We are strangers in front of you, right? The gerim were always the lowest level of the society, the lowest in the social hierarchy of the society. They're the migrants. They're the ones that live in the shadows. And that's how we are to you. V'toshavim k'chol avoseinu. We are residents that are toshav. That means a migrant who has now settled, like a new immigrant, just like all of our forefathers. We just arrived on this planet. Katzel yameinu al aretz. Our days on this earth are just like a shadow. You see a shadow, and in 1 minute, the next minute it's gone. Ve'ein mikveh, and there is nothing. There is nothing that we can hope for. There is no hope for us forever. In other words, we're here and we're gone, and that's just the way it is. David is just reminding the people that are listening and reminding us today, everything we have is from God. We are temporary residents here. We come, we go, and that's the way it is. So therefore, we shouldn't hold back from giving to God, from giving to making the world a better place. Adonai Eloheinu, God, our Lord, Kol Hamona Asher Hachinonu, all of this tremendous amount of wealth that we have put aside, that we have prepared, Livnos L'cha Bayis L'Shem Koshecha, to build for you a house in your honor, Miyadcha Hu U'Lecha Hakol. It all comes from you, and you have everything. V'yadati, and this is just a crucial and important aspect of monotheism that David is laying down over here as the people learn more and more how to worship, how to be a monotheist, how to worship a one God. V'yadati Elohai, and I know my God, ki ata bochein levav, and that you know and you understand what's going on in people's hearts. You know our intentions. You know what we have in our mind. What you want is people to be proper. You want people to be upright, to people to be appropriate, people to be honest. Ani v'yosher levavi. I, in pure honesty, in pure uprightness, his nadavti kolela, I have given all of this that I have given, and all this preparation that I have done. And now your nation that are found here, I have seen that they have happily given over to you. And then he turns and prays, Adonai Elohei Abraham Yitzchak v'Yisrael Avoseinu, God, the Lord of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, our forefathers. Shamra zos li olam. Remember this forever. Liyetzer machshavos levav hamecha. Remember that the heart, the desires, the thoughts of your people. Remember how generous they are towards you, how much they love you, how much they want to bring honor to you, and therefore, you, God, please do everything to keep their hearts set upon you and keep this relationship going. Shlomo bani, and to Solomon my son, Tain levav shalem, give him a pure heart. L'shmar mitzvosecha, so that he will guard and keep your commandments, edvosecha, your covenants, the things that you said, that you taught us, that bear witness to our special relationship, v'chukecha, and your laws, v'lasos hakol, and to that he should do all of them, v'livnos habira, and that he should build the structure asher achinosi, that I have prepared for. I'm going to end here. This is the first half of this chapter. The next half is actually. I might as well finish because it's not that much left. I was planning on splitting it in half, but let's just do this. It's just another 5 minutes and we'll complete this book. Vayomer David l'chol hakahol. And now David turned to the entire congregation and continued his speech. Baruch hu na es Adonai Elohechem. And he tells them, before he was praying to God, now he is telling the people, giving them instructions. Please go ahead and bless God. Vayivarchu chol hakahol, and all of the congregation blessed Ladonai Elohei Avoseim, to God, the Lord of their forefathers, Vayikdu, and they bowed down by Yishtachavu, and they prostrated themselves Ladonai, to God, Vilamelach, and after God to the king. Vayizbechu Ladonai Zivachim, and they brought sacrifices, and they to God. Vayalu olos Ladonai, and they brought burnt offerings to God. L'mocharat hayomahu, on the next day. In other words, after the prayer, the next day they brought the sacrifices. Parim elef, elim elef, that was 1,000 cattle, 1,000 rams, kvasim elef, 1,000 sheep, v'niskehem, and all of their libations, uzvachim l'rov l'chol Yisrael, and all kinds of offerings that came from all of the Israel. Vayochlu, vayishtu, and they ate and they drank. I mean, the purpose of these offerings before God is one brings the offering before God and then partakes of a meal celebrating that relationship. Vayochlu, vayishtu, bayomahu, on that day, besimcha gedola, with a tremendous amount of happiness. Fascinating. Here we're sitting at like the edge of David passing on to the next world, but they're celebrating his incredible career, his incredible life, and the relationship and bond that David's monarchy brought between the people and God. By Amlichu Shenis l'Shlomo ben David, and they again, for another time, they celebrated and coronated Shlomo, the son of David, Solomon, the son of David, as the king. By Yimshechu Adonai l'nagid v'letzarok l'kohen, and they anointed him to God as the leader, and they also anointed the high priest, Sadok, the high priest, so that he should be the high priest once the temple would be established. Vayeshev Shlomo al kisei Adonai, and Solomon sat on the throne of God, Lamelech, to be the king, Tachas David Aviv, in his father's place, Vayatzlach, and he was very successful. Vayishmeu Elav Kol Yisrael, and all of Israel listened to him. There was no fights over who should be the monarch once Solomon sat on the throne. B'chol asarim, and all of the leaders, Vagiborim, and all of the military heroes, V'gam kol b'nei HaMelech David, and all of the sons of the King David, Nasnu Yad Tachas Shlomo HaMelech, they all gave their hand, and it literally means gave their hand, but it means they supported Solomon as the king. By Yagdel Adonai Shlomo L'mala L'Eini Kol Yisrael, and Shlomo and God made Solomon a great king in front of all of the people of Israel. Were able to see how Shlomo became a great king by Yitin alav hod malchus, and God gave him the regal majesty of being the king. Asher lo hayal kol melech l'fanav Yisrael, that no king that preceded him had that. Remember, Saul had a rocky kingdom and eventually had to deal with what at least Saul considered a rebellion, and people had, it was shaky whether or not to, and then and then and then and David also dealt with rebellions. And there was a point where he almost lost his kingdom from his son Avshalom. So, but Shlomo was different. Shlomo, there was no, he had the regal majesty of the king. No one questioned the fact that he was king. But David ben Yishai and David, the son of Yishai, Jesse, Malach al Kol Yisrael, he was the king over all of Israel. V'hayomim asher Malach Yisrael, and the amount of days that he ruled over Israel was a total of 40 years. B'Chevron Malach Sheva Shanim, in Hebron for 7. B'Yerushalayim Malach Shloshim Shalosh, and in Jerusalem for 33 years. Vayamos b'seva tova, and he died at a ripe old age. Seva yamim, literally that means satisfied of days, meaning a ripe old age. Osher v'chavod, having had achieved wealth and honor. Vayimloch Shlomo b'nu tachtav, and he lived to see King Solomon take over his place. V'divrei David HaMelech harishonim v'achronim, and all of the stories. And lest you think that we're trying to hide all of the episodes, all of the difficulties and trials and tribulations and mistakes and all of the problems of David's kingdom, which we pretty much barely mentioned, like a little tiny bit about the counting issue a couple chapters ago. But other than that, if you really want to know all the stories, we're not hiding them from you. You can go look. Hinam ksuvim al divrei Shmuel haroah. They are written. They are all written down and recorded in the words of Shmuel, of Samuel the seer, another Samuel the prophet, Bial Divrei Nason Navi, and when the words then the stories of Nathan the prophet, who was the prophet at the time of all the stories we just referred to, Bial Divrei God HaChozeh, and the other prophet of David, who was God. So, God, that's G-A-D, not G-O-D. So you can go look them up. They're there. We're not hiding the stories. You can go look back, and there's plenty to read if you want to know all of the details of David's history. And with all of those things, you can also find all of his greatness and his kingdom and his might and his power. That's referring to his military victories. Via Itim, and the times, the events that occurred, Asher over all of that occurred to him, Vel Yisrael, and that occurred to all of Israel, Vel Kol Mamlechos Aratzos, and all of the other kingdoms around. You can read all those stories there, and feel free to do so in the book of Samuel. And for those of you that want to do it in this podcast, you can go back to study the book of Samuel in our podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. This concludes the first book of Chronicles. Thank you so much for studying this together with me. Looking forward to studying the second book of Chronicles together, which we will start very soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.